10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, I am Amanda with DevExpress. I am here with Areg. Areg, we are doing some what's new for 24.1.
Yeah. So actually, it's kind of a bit of a misnomer here because really, if you're a universal subscriber, this kind of old hat. You kind of have seen all this stuff already for the last month or so because the way at DevExpress we go about this in modern days is that if you're a universal subscriber, you get access to the bleeding edge, the alpha stuff. So that would be build version 24.1.1.
Nice.
So now we're on 24.1.3. And for those at home who are keeping note and paying attention to how we did previous releases, that means that we're on a stable build now, which means that for all intents and purposes, we are basically on the bits that are going to be what's going to be rolled into the next maintenance release as well. So if you want to get the latest and greatest, you could do that now. So this is all stuff that's available today in your download manager, whether or not you're using Universal or not. Because like I said, it's a stable build. It's the first stable non-beta. And if you are a Universal subscriber and you were using the alpha bits, I recommend upgrading to this stable as fast as you possibly can, or really never using a beta in production. Please don't do that. But anyway, what I really wanted to touch on today, I know we've been talking, me and Amanda, we've been chatting it up the last few weeks at Build with customers about Maui, and
Yes.
that was the topic du jour for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. But at DevExpress, we have a real soft spot for Blazor because we have a lot of Blazor components, and this release is actually pretty darn exciting for Blazor. Conversely, it's actually really exciting for Maui too. We have a lot of new controls for Maui, but specifically what I'd like to touch on today is our new offering in Blazor because we do have a few controls we're very proud of. So if you go to demos.devexpress.com, which is what I was looking at here, you actually get the latest bits, the 24.1 bits basically. So you get all the new updates. Uh, but if you go and click on Blazor components, you'll get just the Blazor. And again, the green basically are the updated sections. So we do have quite a few, as you can tell. There's a lot of green sections in this list, this navigation. There's also some new badges here we have. So basically, these are brand new controls. These are not just updates. These are controls we did not have prior to this. So some of these are kind of basic in the sense that I don't think you're going to be using an awful lot of different types of chart gauges, but a few of them are pretty big, heavy hitters. So we have the HTML editor control that you may know and love from DevExtreme. It's now available in Blazor as well, so you could use
Nice.
this in your Blazor applications. And so this is kind of basically like the souped up version of a Markdown editor. And we also have a long requested control, or at least to me, it was a long requested control. We have a map control that's not just a shapefile based map, but a tile based map. So that's available to you
Ooh.
as well. Um, I wanted to work in as many of these new controls as I could into what we already have. And we're going to go ahead and do that in a moment. But actually, since I'm not really building anything with geolocation data, it didn't make sense to feature this control. But it's still a pretty darn nice one. I think I'm pretty impressed by this one. I really am like itching to find a scenario in which I can kind of use it. Um, but in any case, what I also wanted to showcase, or a big one, another big one, we are going to get into detail with this, is a PDF viewer. So,
Oh, you love a
for those of you
PDF.
noticing, this is not the Chrome based or Firefox based PDF viewer. This is actually our PDF viewer. And it's interesting to say that because prior to this release, we didn't have one. So, I mean, at least on the web, we didn't. So that's kind of cool. And not just that, but we're also going to talk today about making modifications to the toolbar list here as well. So you see, these are items that we have full access to because it's our control now. So we can add additional items here to do what we want. Um, there are in playing with this control, there are a few things I noticed, by the way. I might as well just list them out now in case you're curious to know what you can do with this PDF control. So you can find out what page we're on. So you could read the current page or read the page number. You could read how many pages there are. So basically, you can get this information taken out from the properties of the DXPDF viewer. You can't set the page number, so you can't navigate in code to the current page or the page you want to get to. So if you need to replicate this sort of style, 3 of 6 or whatever of 6, you could have that outside of this container. Um, so there's that. So you have a few different options. Um, I should probably at this point. Oh yeah, it's probably a little. It's a minor thing to those of you who haven't been implementing file upload controls. It's a major thing to me. So we already went to the trouble of using the old file upload control, and there's nothing wrong with it really. It's just that it requires a little bit more rigmarole to get everything working. Specifically, we wrote a controller a few sessions ago called the file upload controller, I believe. Basically, this controller was handling the upload process. Um, the It was a few steps involved, so it's not really component based. It's kind of it requires a controller to help out. Uh, this new file input control is actually a little bit easier in that you don't have to write a controller. So if you're just getting started and you don't really want to write it your own controller, this should be easier to start with. So using the file input controller is just like an easy mode version of our old upload control. And then the upload control also now has um, a few different. I think one thing that's changed is that I noticed that, for example, if I were to upload a control, hopefully I can get a large-ish um, PDF to show you this. So if I upload a large, here's a 5 meg PDF file. It's pretty by page number. It's large. If I open this, it's going to start the progress bar. The progress bar looks a little bit different than it did in the past. So that's one thing we changed. So just to be mindful of, it should just visually, it should just be better. It should be an improvement, but it is a change. So that's one thing to note about the old file upload that's changed. Like I said, this is the upload control, the DX upload, and then this is the file input. So that's a difference in naming between the two. File input is what you should probably be using if you don't have a preference between them. File input should be a little easier. So with that out of the way, one last thing. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our tab based or tabular based grid solutions because that's kind of what everyone knows us for. One thing that has come in the grid itself is we now have header bands, which you may know and love. I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of header bands to be honest, but they're there now, so you could use them if you'd like. Um, because I don't know. I feel that they kind of like entice me to think of categories where they don't exist necessarily. But if you're looking to reproduce what you already have in like a WinForms or WPF application, and you need this, there's really no negotiating. You probably do need header bands, so that's great to see. So it's just that much more easier to rebuild maybe what you already have in another application in Blazor. So it's kind of just one step forward towards really giving you the same DevExpress experience everywhere. So that's something new. One thing I'm personally really excited about, which I've been uh, hearing questions about for a long time, and we are going to be talking about it again, just like we're talking about the PDF viewer, is the tree list. So we didn't have a tree list prior to this release, for Blazor at least, and now we do. So yeah, it's tucked away down here. I couldn't see it, but we're going to talk about this. And actually, I wanted to showcase it in the demo because there is basically some sense of hierarchy here in the data we have in our demo. The stuff I was showing in the session or in our sessions, we didn't have hierarchy. So I didn't really have an opportunity to have parent child in what I was showing today or what I'm going to be. So I thought, might as well show you how parent-child works in the tree list here with proper demo data. So that's kind of cool to have that here. But we will be talking about this, so you don't have to really pay super close attention. It's just that I'm not going to be really having the opportunity to expand later because really everything's going to be a file I'm using to upload. So there's no real idea of inheritance in our models. And with that out of the way, kind of I'm going to talk about where we're going to get started today or what's
Okay.
our starting point. So, for those of you following along at home, I actually have a repository that kind of is logging as we're going along. And previous sessions, we were touching on Maui a bit. We're going to be mainly focusing on the Blazor server half of this. So in Maui, what we were doing prior, just for refresher, was we were actually handling document signing. So you could use a signature pad that the Maui Community Toolkit has, and you could use that and leverage that with everything else we have with our Office File API. We're not going to be talking about that because it's too much to fit into one session, really, and we already covered it. It's old hat by now. What we're going to be talking about is the other half of our front end, which was Blazor server. And really, I chose Blazor server, but you could do WebAssembly and you could do a little bit of both. .NET 8 kind of blurs the distinction between the two now. So you could kind of do this, whatever render model or whatever hosting model you want to go with. It's fine. But this application basically is what we're starting with. And basically, what it's doing, and I'm already actually gone ahead and checked it out and I've built it, is it's basically this view, which is going to give us the ability to look at some items or some files in our upload directory. So we have a set of uploads here. So we have two PDF files right now. And if I refresh kind of what's in my uploads directory in our grid, in our boring grid, I say it's boring because we're going to replace it with the tree list shortly enough. We get like a view of kind of what we're looking at, and it's being populated because we have this file controller I was talking about, which is no longer strictly necessary. So kind of this is the over-engineered way of doing it. But if you want to do it a hard mode, you could do it the way I did. So if you use our file input control, you can kind of get away with less and not use controllers. But I already have controllers and all that stuff, so kind of I can't be bothered to trash this, but basically I'm able to get files which I'm representing as file tags. So I believe elsewhere in my project under data, I have this idea of a file tag, and then the files themselves can be signed and they have signed statuses, and those really don't matter much for today's session because we're not going to be talking about Maui. But in Maui, like I said, we were signing our documents. So basically, if it was in one of these early requested signed statuses, I could then sign it and then toggle it up to signed status. But anyway, so this is the upload control, so not the file input control. So I can go ahead and showcase to you kind of how it looks like when I upload inside of this. So I've gone ahead and uploaded one more file, so I get one more row. And the way we had implemented this in our previous sessions was that I had two buttons. One was refresh, that refreshes this grid just to have a grid instead of like a standard list. And then the other one was this download button that just gets us the latest file that we've uploaded. So that should be that file I just put up now, which is apparently a barcode. There's 5 pages of a barcode. And a few things that we could do better on. One is that, uh, like I said, the grid is great. Everyone loves it. Everyone knows it. We could do this as a tree list, make it more exciting. The other thing is that we could actually, this is the browser-based PDF viewer. We could have our own PDF viewer. We don't have to resort to this. So that might be a breath of fresh air if you have an application where you have maybe some sort of invoicing portal and you want to show in line the PDF that you're getting. You could do that now, and it will basically be another DevExpress control. So it will blend in with everything you're doing. So it's not going to stand out vividly the way, like for example, my PDF viewer in Chrome in Firefox does. I have a dark mode in most places on my OS, so it's dark and really bold. And I guess this would not look so great if it was right next to kind of the blazing berry brightness of kind of what I have here. So let's get direct to that. And actually, there are a few other enhancements to doing that. So we have a few other new things as well. So we have a drawer I can use. We have a toast notification we can use as well. So let's talk about that. So firstly, we do need to do this. So we don't get away scot free with what we already have. So let's see what we already have installed at this point. So we have DevExpress Blazor document processor, which is the Office File API. This is not something I'm using right now in Blazor. It's something mostly I'm using in the Maui project in this solution. I just have it installed here in case mostly. And then this drawing Skia is there because right now I'm not running on a Linux box, but I do usually run on Mac OS, and you do need this drawing Skia if you're doing cross-platform rendering. So I have that for that reason. So let's go ahead and get the additional NuGet package I'm going to be needing. So it's DevExpress Blazor PDF viewer, and my NuGet is helpful enough to give me a hint as to kind of what I would probably want. I'm going to need to point this to my DevExpress private NuGet feed, and you'll notice the version number is 24.1.3. So everyone does have access to this stable version of the new 24.1 right now. So I'm going to go ahead and install this to add the one more NuGet package I do need in this particular project. And that's so I can have the PDF viewer. And with that being done, I actually do need to add a few um, objects or a few middleware lines so that I can actually access things inside of my toolbars in the PDF. So we did the way this is kind of organized is that we kind of count this under the namespace right now that's shared with reporting. So some of these objects exist, or the toolbars at least exist, also in a report viewer. So um, I do need to basically mention in this middleware line report viewer. We're not using report viewer, but the namespaces are similar right now. That's probably a good time to mention that the way we do new controls, for those of you at home who haven't really experienced it, we call them CTP for 6 months or so. And we're right now in that cycle with these new controls, like our drawer and our PDF viewer. And I think our Toast notification manager is also CTP. But basically, the idea is that it's not that it's unstable, it is stable. What it does mean is we may actually, I won't say probably, we may need to go at this with an axe and refactor, which means that you may see large breaking changes. So that's what we mean by CTP. So there may be some breaking changes between now and whenever we take it out of the CTP. And typically speaking, we take new controls out of CTP after 6 months. So there's that. Um, yeah, so that's where we are right now with the PDF viewer. So I've gone ahead and added that, and I should also mention that we should probably add in the additional namespaces for the components that we're going to be picking up and using. So I believe the namespace for this is similar to DevExpress. Uh, sorry, my solution or my project name is similar to our namespace name. The DevExpress Blazor, um, I believe it's called PDF Viewer. And if I'm not mistaken, um, there is also something similar to that to use our custom toolbar as well. So it's autocomplete is betraying me today, but it's this second option, DevExpress, Blazor, and it's going to be reporting models. And like I said, it's not really related to the actual reporting module. So it's not like we're no whites unhappy. Uh, let me let me go ahead and just work on that a bit. Okay, so my point was that the way reporting is being worked into this is that, like I said, things are kind of being used um, from everywhere, and we will probably refactor at some point. So just to be mindful of the fact that right now there's some kind of reference to reporting, and that's because we do have a report viewer and a report design or a document report viewer and designer in Blazor. So that's an option and something we kind of can reuse as much as we can. So let's go ahead and go into the main sort of page we're going to be remodeling. And I've already kind of brought in some of the new CSS I'm going to be using for what I'm showing. So I already like sight beyond sight, I guess. I predicted we're going to be using the PDF. So I have a PDF box here and I have kind of these new buttons as well. So kind of how did I do it? Well, I updated that repository so that we kind of have a starting ground. So we don't have a ton of things to do in one session. We can just get up and running. And I've actually already gone ahead and updated my code behind as well. So kind of is kind of a preview of what we're going to be getting soon enough. So I have kind of some reference to toast notifications and kind of what I'm kind of expecting to do or bind it to. So I'm going to be binding it my PDF content to a byte array, and that's why I have this dot content. And I can actually go ahead and just right now include the PDF viewer because I already have the NuGet package, so might as well just include it. So I have the PDF viewer right now in code behind, ready to go. Um, Also, I'm going to be handling my data rows a little differently um, in the tree list versus the grid. So right now I had the grid. I'm going to be replacing that with our spanking new tree list. So there's that. And then I have some code related to kind of showing toast notifications. So we're going to get to that. Um, and then I'm also handling kind of some row change notifications for changing the focus row um, on my tree list. And like I said, I already have this API. So what I'm gonna be hitting here is the file controller, and basically it follows this idea. This route here is gonna get us um, these files. So if I go here into um, my get file, this is what calling this controller with a ID. It gets me things that are stored by my file URL storage service, which is something we can actually beef up later. But you might beef this up with Redis at some point. But right now, all it is that it's an in-memory uh, object that basically I'm if I go ahead and point where this is, this service, it's using a dictionary behind the scenes. So in memory, it's loaded up each time, and it loads up. Um, it basically hoovers up everything in my uploads directory that's already there, and then it also keeps track of what gets added to the dictionary. So the file names get added, or actually the GUIDs get added, the unit GUIDs get added each time. And then so I can have multiple versions of one file. So one version is signed, the other one is requested to be signed, that sort of thing. That's why I did it that way. And I'm also, I'll enable this at some point when we get to the PDF viewer. And I have this tree list, and that's kind of what I want to get to kind of. So we have this refresh behavior that's kind of refreshing our grid. Really, we want at this point to refresh a tree list, which we're gonna go ahead and replace. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's let's have our refresh button instead pull from this API, from this controller, get us basically the list of files, add it to our observable collection, and then this data this data property is what's being bound. Um, and then these are two old functionalities that kind of we don't have to really touch on. It's really handling streaming for the data that we're doing a little bit different. We're doing a little bit differently now. So here we have the grid I was talking about. So actually, what I want to go ahead and do is piece by piece kind of showcase what we're talking about. And if I'm not mistaken, since I kind of like the final result is kind of going to be nested in a different way, let's see if this is going to comply with our sort of layout that we have now. So we're using the TreeX list, and it looks like I probably need to, um, yeah, close this as well. So I have some columns as well. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's add our columns for this tree list. So again, like I said, pointing this at my field, my data records are called um, file tag. File tag right now does not actually have a children property, but that way with listing a child field name, I said there's not going to be really hierarchy today. I wish there was, but I can't think of a good way to introduce hierarchy. So maybe it would be more confusing if I did it that way. So I have some columns, and one interesting thing is that sign status, I was talking about earlier, I'm going to be handling it in a kind of interesting way. I'm able to use cell display templates in the tree list. And so I'm not going to just have a boring text. It's going to stick out a little bit. It's going to be styled with CSS. So we're going to get the same sign status for all the rows. It's going to be this CSS, but it's going to pop a little bit. And I think that this version should just work. I don't think that there's any real difference between what we have and what we need. So this should basically be the same sort of layout now, just changing one object, which is um, basically the grid. So the grid should now be swapped out with the new tree list. So few less columns in this version. I decided to implement it that way. If I refresh, you'll see all my objects, the same objects, uh, and they're all requested. And like I said, there's no hierarchy because I can't think of a good reason to have it. So I decided don't do it. Um, but it does have a nice little popping effect that you can actually see that the sign status is requested, and everything else does function like before. So I can still go ahead and select additional files, or I could drag and drop them. So I could, for example, uh, add a product list. It gets uploaded, and if I refresh, I now get the product list, and I can download that file as well. So those things are all available to me still. I haven't broken anything, which is always
Nice.
good news. Yeah, it's always better to not break things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, um, the other bit is that we kind of want to possible showcase how this would look like if I were to kind of integrate the heavy hitter of today's events, which is the PDF viewer. So again, I kind of have an idea about how I really want to introduce the PDF viewer. I don't want it to be completely in line with everything else. Um, so it's kind of something that I prefer to nest, uh, pull it out of kind of the large nested model I have. So let me go ahead and do that. So this is the PDF viewer, and while I'm doing that, I should mention that we're going to be eventually not displaying it in this manner. We're going to be using a slightly different approach. Um, and I think I have a viewable property right now. I added in code behind. So if it's viewable, I want to basically handle this in Razor syntax so that I'm going to display this PDF viewer. And we're going to be handling this in a slightly different way. We're going to be nesting this in a drawer control eventually. Um, and I promised that we were going to be handling this on customized toolbar. Um, I think this is one step more advanced than what we are right now. So let's go ahead and just for now comment out this customization option we have on the toolbar. And this should basically be um, the PDF viewer. And I may even want to put it inside of well, it's right now in a PDF box. And my PDF box is constrained in size. So hopefully it doesn't take up a ton of space. But basically now, this is designed in a way so that basically if I do a row selection changed, so focus row changed here, um, what I'm doing is in addition to the changes I'm making, I'm changing my selected file tag. So when I'm going ahead and making changes, I'm actually um, going ahead and pushing these changes to my doc content as well. So if I go here, this doc content, and I go to my reference for this, um, I'll focus row change here. Doc content is being um, updated so that it points to whatever response I get from my controller. So every time I'm actually changing the selected row, uh, oh let's see what it is that does not like customize toolbar. Yeah, let's see where customized toolbar. Oh yeah, you cannot comment inline Blazor like that. That's why. So let's go back to customized toolbar. Let's navigate back. There we go. This is near. And let's uncomment our handler, and let's just for now. Uh, I really don't want to get rid of it, but I will get rid of it right now for demonstration's sake. We'll eventually put back the controller. But basically, the point is that right now this is kind of the stock standard PDF viewer without customization. So what it's doing, what the app is doing itself, so right now my document does not contain any pages. If I refresh, I'll have some objects, and I can actually, if I change the row, my selected row is changed, and then my API is called, and then I'm pointed to things. Um, and this is not how our PDF viewer looks. It looks a little bit nicer, and the reason it does not look identical to kind of what I was showing before is we probably need to have some more CSS. So let's be sure to include our CSS style sheets as well while we're at it. So this is maybe something um, I'm remiss for not doing, but if I were to go into where you can find our Blazing Berry CSS, uh, if I go to Blazing, right next to that, yeah. So this is under underscore host CSHTML. So right about there, I'm going to be also including the necessary style sheet components for the PDF viewer as well to be happy, so that we get the full PDF viewer. And basically, right after the uh, the core DevExpress controls get styled correctly, I'm gonna style these controls as well. And like I said, namespace proviso. This is not really related to extra reports. It's just that we're in CTP right now, which means that this stuff can get dramatically refactored in the next 6 months. Right now, it's here. So if you're from the future, don't do exactly quite this. It's probably not correct. It's not going to be in the future. If you're right now in the present, like excellent, because this is probably valid right now.
Wow.
But yeah, this is probably going to be moved. It's going to be somewhere else at some point. But now that I have the style sheet, if I run this, it's going to look a little different. So we're going to have inline on the same page our PDF viewer, not someone else's, not a browser-based PDF viewer down here. And it already looks nicer. Uh, so this is the PDF viewer. It doesn't show anything right now because we don't have any items. But if I refresh, I get some rows in my tree list, and if I change the focus row in my tree list, I actually get these items in my tree list. And I set the zoom setting to pretty high because I think it looks a little nicer when we uh, when we have it that way. We don't go in super deep, but we can if we want. And there's a view mode style if you, to show a single page at a time if you prefer. I prefer continuous. That's what I'm doing. But yeah, you have all the controls you expect in your toolbar, and you get the ability to do an async download of what's bound in memory to that byte array for the PDF viewer. So this is unrelated to my app. There's a download button here, which is kind of cool, but I have a better one. I think I like my controller based approach to get GUIDs and get the document from the server instead of from Blazor, but to each their own, I guess. So this is something that's built into every PDF viewing application that uses our PDF viewer. You don't have to have a controller for this part. You can get away without everything else I have. And then printers never work, so I'm deathly afraid of pressing print. I wonder what happens when I press print. I get the
Mm.
system print dialog, which is, I never see that when I'm actually using computers because I'm like, the only reason I use that is to create PDFs in a novel way. But yeah, printers never actually work for me. So kudos to you if you get them working. Um, and
You have a
by the
bad
way,
relationship with printers?
yeah, I know HP has not been good to me in my life, so I'm just kind of. And by the way, I'm also showcasing kind of my API doesn't load things immediately, even though technically we're on the same machine. Since things go through a network connection, there is some loading involved, and you see how we were handling loading. So again, this file is a little bit larger. It's a 36 page document. But if I were to, for example, let's say go to another, let's say, document, and you notice there was like a little bit of a load. So that load basically is uh, something that's going to be visible to you. So you get the load bar option. So that's the load bar indicator, which I think is cool. So typically you're going to be having some sort of load because you're going to be using network connections to load PDFs. So that's pretty excellent that you get that by default, that behavior. Now, let's also go a little bit further because I said that we were going to really um, soup this up even more. So one thing we can go ahead and do beyond kind of just having a PDF viewer in line is we can actually um, nest it in a different type of control, which is a new one we have called the drawer. And to me, this was kind of like a great sort of headache saver because, to be honest, I don't like planning out how my UI is going to work in terms of navigation. Um, Outside of having like a details view, I don't really want to think about, you know, I click on this and I get that, or I click on this and I get these options. I'd like to have as much of a spa experience as I possibly can because users like it, and it's easier for me. Uh, I guess the only real disadvantage is for SEO, but really, these are not really. Most of the pages our users are designing or our customers are designing, they're not really SEO focused. It's more CRM focused and more focused around usability. So unless we're talking about marketing content, uh, SEO is not really the biggest concern here. So we can do whatever render model we want, and we can kind of handle this as a spa if we'd like. And really, spa is mostly the better paradigm for me. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to introduce something called our drawer. So our drawer control, um, really, I probably see I have my upload control area, which is up at the top. And then I have these buttons, which are just toggling kind of what I have inside of the container, which in this case right now is a tree list. And really right now, um, probably should go ahead and replace all that with the real nested container that I really want to go ahead and show. So I want this to be um, inside of what we call a DX drawer. Just for to give you some context as to what I mean by drawer, keep saying it. If you go to our demos, the drawer is this new control with 24.1. Here we go. It's this new layout. So the idea is that kind of in the spa idea, I have this ability on the left hand side or on the right hand side to basically show a area which is going to be basically displayed on top of my target area. So this is the target area that is drawer capable, I guess. And then the body of the drawer are these regions. So the body is this content, and the the other idea is that I have a header and a footer area, and usually you want some sort of footer because, like for example, here the footer has the OK button, so I can get rid of it. Um, and I this navigation is being controlled here from this button. So you could, for example, have a property in your code behind that's um, adding some state to the page and is invoking the um, the toggle for the the drawer itself. And so this is the drawer. So let's I think I've already. And here's the thing, like the one thing that really you always get, you never really change, things really don't change when it comes to this, and it's kind of messing up messing up the nesting of XML, XAML, and HTML. Like honestly, like I'm really good at messing up the nesting like of markup. I have a talent for it. It seems like. So I've gone ahead and since I don't trust myself to put this together piecemeal, I'm kind of just like, I know this version works. This is well-formed XML slash Blazor, so I'm just throwing it onto the page. Um, and it does reference this uncustomized toolbar, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it in. So we're not going to get the stock standard PDF viewer. We're going to get the PDF viewer plus one more button. And that button is basically going to be handling this toolbar model, so that I'm going to be able to add an item. And I think I have to add one more import for that. So I believe, not mistaken, it's for DevExpress. Maybe it's under, let's see, it's under Blazor reporting, I believe. Blazor reporting models. Okay. So that seemed to do the trick. Now it's happy about that. But basically, I'm the important thing here is this section. I'm adding this, and what it's going to be doing is that it's a copy button. Uh, since I'm not visually gifted, I'm just using a icon for that, which is being styled by this thing called print button. Print button is not really a print button. It's going to point to this PC icon, which is just taken from our demos. And I was hoping that would give you the file image preview, but the actual image, if you're curious, is, and let me showcase that to you. So it's this icon. This is going to be the icon I'm going to show in my PDF viewer. And I know this is kind of like not the icon you're expecting when you copy things to your computer, but if you really strain and think about it, it can be. I mean, it's possible. Like there's an argument you can make that that's not the worst possible icon. So I'm going to stick with it. But that's the icon I'm using on my custom button. Um, and with that, I think that I have some nesting with the drawer. And as I mentioned, kind of the target container is the area you put in the actual content. Things are not going to really be changing. I'm going to have the same sort of stuff. So I have my upload control again here, and I probably shouldn't have it twice if I am using that. Um, so I have my upload control, and I have my buttons for refresh, my toggles. So I'm not going to repeat those. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those those areas in my markup. So now those are gone and being moved to this target body for the drawer, and that means they're going to be things that are potentially going to be overlapped by the drawer when I invoke the swing in. So it's going to swing in the drawers, um, or the drawers I'm pulling out, and there is the body template, which is the thing I'm going to be swinging in, which is this PDF viewer, and the position is going to be it's coming in from the left. Uh, I think that means that it comes from the left. I don't know. We'll find out. I always get thrown off by that. Yeah, I'm really bad at being oriented. So
It's kind of
yeah,
like
well,
stage left, stage right.
exactly. What does it mean? I mean, we're doing open heart surgery. What does like on the right hand side of the body mean? But
Is it
yeah.
your right hand
Anyway,
side or my right hand side?
exactly.
Oh,
One thing I am doing that's kind of really important is that you want to close the drawer when it's open. So my footer, I have this option on close drawer and or this button that has an option that basically it's going to change my viewability on the page. So it's not going to be the viewable PDF anymore, and it's going to also be closed. So the drawer is going to be closed, and
good job.
I handle these as two different options because kind of the idea is that my PDF viewer could be anywhere outside the drawer, and is open really is a property using for the status of the drawer. So I added a little indicator here in this version that is tracking my selection. So if I click here, um, I get a button in a link state. So if I, for example, click let's say one of these um, rows, I can update here, description kind of what I've selected. If I click this, the drawer should come in. This is what orientation from the left means now. I guess we got confirmation. So it means the drawer opens from the left, not to the left.
Got it.
So this I put the PDF viewer here, and I put my custom control here, and it's a copy button. And what it's copying, I should probably mention, is I go down here. It's doing some toast notification stuff, but it's going ahead and invoking something called copy to clipboard. It's a JavaScript interop um, function I added that you'll need, but if you use my repository as a starting point, you won't need to do it by yourself. But if I go into, I believe, there's so many different places that we have templates, and they change depending on our hosting model sometimes. But if I were to, for example, if I were to go ahead and point this at, let's say, let me see if I actually have this, because that would be kind of important. Copy to clipboard. If I have this JavaScript method, copy to clipboard, let's see if we have it right now. Let's find all. Yeah, I do. It's in main layout. So there's so many different layouts, but it's in this one. So I added this simple thing that all it's doing is it's calling in JavaScript, the thing that every browser has by now, this navigator.clipboard, and I'm just writing to that clipboard the text that I'm being given. And then in Blazor, we're using the JS interop right now, the JavaScript interop, so that I'm basically passing in this URL to download the PDF. So I'm not relying this up arrow thing is the DevExpress PDF viewer download, which is going to get the byte array that's bound right now to the PDF. But if I click on this, I'll get a link. And it'd be great if I had notification that I copied it, but it is copied now. And I'm going to go ahead and paste that link, and it downloads from my API. And if you have a app that has a nice URL, like a DNS hosted URL at a production place, yeah, this is not going to say localhost for you, but for me it does. And I get a round trip to the server, and I get from the controller handed back this file. Now, I said that it'd be nice to get a notification. I pointed here expecting one because I have already worked in this idea of Toast, and I really need a Toast notification manager to kind of handle the process for me now. So it'd be great if I had notifications each time I copy and change my clipboard. It would be nice if I also had some sort of Toast notification if I made some big state change to my application. So if I, for example, were to go ahead and let's say uh, change the selected row, and I change parts of the application based on that. I want to maybe get some sort of notification in my application of that. So that's again something new with 24.1. We have this idea of Toast notifications. We need a Toast notification manager at this point to actually show the Toast notifications. So let's go ahead and pull that in as well. So really, this is um, kind of not really necessarily being shown um, in every single situation. It's being shown on demand. So basically, my Toast provider is just going to sit here, and it's really being shown here. And I'm basically, well, it's not down here quite right, but it's actually based on this alignment that I've set here. That's going to be coming in from the right, and the vertical I prefer it to come from the top really. And I played around with display times, and for me in my application, it made sense to have a queue of one because I don't really need to read your notifications. It's just nice to have some sort of like bell that like, hey, something happened. And then the display time really, I just kind of played with it and I found out that 4/5 of a second was pretty good. And so I just stayed with it. By default, this is, well, not by default, but typically you can set this to a zero. So if you go to time span, I believe it's one of the default methods for one of the default options for time span. It's called none or something at zero. So you can set it to zero if you'd like. But in my case, I'm going to set it to zero point 0.8 seconds. If you set it to zero, that means, by the way, not that you're not going to get notifications, it means that we're never going to hide them. If I set it to zero point 0.8 seconds or 800 milliseconds, it's going to basically show it for most of a second and then get rid of it. So let's go ahead and yeah, we got the notification here. It's kind of fast, but I prefer them to be kind of fast because I don't think that you should be really forced to not to worry about the notification. It's just there to kind of give you some indicator what's going on. Um, Interesting thing there is that if I go into what I'm doing with focus row change and how I'm showing these notifications, I have different options here for the toast. I am using a theme mode for the default notification when I'm kind of showing the focus row change. I'm setting the text. Um, I'm using saturated. I also am using in my custom toolbar uh, notifications when I'm changing the clipboard. And I kind of played with it to see what looks the best. And pastel is a pretty cool looking theme that still kind of gives some visual impact. So again, this button down here, it's styled so that it looks like a link. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and select a new file to upload, give you the full process. Let's go to my downloads, or even better, let's. So I found this one paper about Bitcoin of all things. Um, it's like a 40-page paper. I think it's a pretty decent
Does it
size.
does it
So,
explain what it is?
well, I mean, to be honest, I don't want to get pedantic about it, but yeah, um, it's
I'm just kidding.
it's not as bad as its alternatives. Let me say that. So
Okay.
I got some description here of what I'm dealing with here. So it's a 7 meg file. Um, I wanted to kind of not like put my chips down and say how big it was before seeing this, but it's 7 megs. So it took some time to upload basically. And if I click this, well, already it's started the process of giving me the chance to pull the doc content. But if I click this link, I'll get the drawer to come out and show me the PDF viewer. And it's loaded my PDF, which is this research paper on kind of Ethereum versus Bitcoin and 50% slash 33% attacks. Anyway, it's not important the details of what's being discussed. What is important is that our PDF viewer can handle kind of um, large-ish PDFs, and I have a large example beyond this to show, but also kind of how it displays content that's table-based or chart-based and things like that. So that's kind of cool. Now, I said if I click this custom icon, I should be able to view or get the clipboard to change. So if I click this, I hope to get some sort of notification up here, up top, that my clipboard was changed and link was copied, which is what I wanted to hear. So now I know my clipboard's a little bit different. I'll get the same PDF now through my API. And that's what I did. And so this is the browser-based PDF viewer. So the content's basically the same. The only difference is that this thumbnail view on the the left-hand side is not something that's built into our current version CTP PDF viewer. So that's maybe something to be mindful of. But if you want the this portion, the majority portion of kind of the content, you do get that in our PDF viewer. So it's here. The other thing that's cool is that you can actually change the selection in the tree list over here, and the content here should be updated. So if I were to change to another file, so here we go. So I get my file updated here in the PDF viewer. So, and I can also go ahead and close the PDF viewer with this button. So I had some red indicator on my button so that I know to close it if I want to basically go back to the list view that I was looking at. So this is kind of a one funny way of handling things. So because usually kind of the traditional way of doing this is that you would have a separate details view and a separate list view. Um, and the drawer kind of means that you can kind of get away with a page load and navigating somewhere new, and you could still have your content visible. Um, and the way I prefer in this case is kind of doing it in the drawer manner where kind of the drawer is pushing aside the content and it's adaptive, so that's fine. But you can handle it so that this actually just starts covering up its new layer. So if I were to quickly toggle that, just so you can kind of see the difference of what I mean by that. So it's a little finesse that we added with the drawer. But if I were to go back to the drawer, the very top of where the drawer is defined, if I change the mode the drawer is using, instead of shrinking, I want to overlap. Overlap, I think, usually looks better for most apps. In my case, this demo I put together, I just like the way the shrink looks and just cool that it's adaptive so that you can kind of squeeze the UI and the tree list and everything kind of behaves as it should. So I can, for example, point this at a new file, like I can pull in a fairly large PDF. It's not large by size, but by page count, it's pretty large. I refresh this because basically still using the same UI. I get this crossband content down here. I could load that crossband content, and it's 832 pages. So it's a fairly large PDF by page size. And you'll notice that the way the drawer works is a little bit different. It's not squeezing everything now because it's what did we call that? It's called overlap. So instead of shrinking, it's overlapping. So now I get this 832 page PDF document, and I set it by default in my case to 50% zoom, but you could do more zoom if you'd like. And so the full zoom options are like something like a ridiculous amount if you'd like, or something more reasonable, like I guess 100 or some, yeah, 100 is fine. So I can go ahead and view 832 pages of invoices if I'd like, and the PDF is doing just fine. Um, and Anyway, so this is kind of what we get out of the box, and this is the PDF viewer. Sorry, this is the tree list that we're looking at right now. It doesn't have hierarchy in my case because I couldn't think of a good use case that made sense to have hierarchy. Um, so I kind of just was playing around with this idea of a children's or a children um, collection that I didn't really add. I can get rid of it if I'd like. I'm not using it, but yeah, basically the idea was that I wanted to showcase this new control that we have and its selection options. We're handling basically one row selection at a time, and we're handling um, uh, we're handling page state in a way so that basically whatever I select is what I'm displaying elsewhere onto the page. Um, let's maybe try spicing this up a little bit and pulling something that may be a larger type of PDF. Um, so I don't know if I have a good example of a large-ish PDF that I can point to, but what I can also do is maybe showcase um, one of our PDFs from our report. So our report demo has something called um, this chart.pdf, which is basically something you're probably familiar with if you've seen our demos, which is basically a showcase of different chart types um, in XR charts. So this is built using XR reports. And so let's say if you were building a reporting based application and you not just want to show the document viewer, but you want to show actually a proper PDF viewer, you can do that now, which is, I think, pretty darn cool because most users don't know what PRX files are and how our document viewer works. So for most users, I think it's more intuitive to get like our extra reports to give them a view of a PDF instead of something that's a halfway house to a PDF, if that makes sense. So because just so I can clarify what I mean by that. So if I were to go to extra reports, so if I go to reporting in our demos, and I go here to, let's say, our Blazor reporting demos. So the document viewer is this guy. So it's not really a PDF viewer. The PDF gets involved once you export to something else. Right now, it's not a PDF. So that's kind of confusing, I think, to some users that are expecting this is a fully formed PDF because they expect that this is all they need to do. Usually, they need to take one extra step to use this file elsewhere, which is export to PDF. The great thing is you could, as a developer, take that step for them and just give them the raw PDF and say, here, this is a fully formed PDF. Mr. User, you don't have to really know necessarily anything else, and you could just play with this however you want. You can download it, export it, and use any of the custom buttons that I have for it. And you could, copy a link to it and view this in the browser-based PDF viewer and get everything back you're expecting. So I think that's one nice thing in 24.1. We made the workflow of extra reports a little bit more simple because of it. Um, so yeah, that's actually all she wrote, Amanda. I can't think of any other way to kind of take my lame app and make it just bedazzled with 24.1 goodness. So this is kind of where we stand right now. And I personally think it's awesome. I mean, I'm just getting so much toast notification goodness out of what I have now, and I kind of got it for free. So yeah,
Nice. I
I
think it
think
looks
we're
good.
ready to call it. And
Call it quits.
yeah, and I'll of course I will everything that we went over today. It will be updated on my repository that's keeping track of kind of the latest and greatest. So I'll update this project so that you'll get a branch for today's session, and you can always find that branch and use it as a reference with this video so you can follow along at home and see what's going on. And like I said, again, a lot of what we showed today that's new are CTP controls, meaning they will probably get heavily refactored in the future, meaning that a
Okay.
lot of namespaces will change and naming will change potentially too. So it's not going to be exact one to one in the future, but these are things that right off the block you can do with these controls, and so they're definitely new things that you could take advantage of, and so I highly recommend you do because they just look great. It's awesome to get this functionality.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's everything.
Amazing. All right. So we did post the link to that GitHub, your live repository, so people can check it out. All right, everybody. So that was some 24.1 goodness. Thank you, Areg. If you want to be notified when we're going live next, we are kind of in a summertime vibe. So we might not be every week, but you will get notified if you turn on your DevExpress notifications on Twitch. And if you are a YouTube subscriber, you'll get notified when we go live as well. So subscribe to YouTube and subscribe to Twitch. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Areg, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.